Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today I'm talking about Metaphor ReFantazio. I had the privilege of Atlas flying me out to New York City to attend their recent preview event. Once I was done scarfing down my first New York slice of pizza in literally too long, I've missed you so much, I got to play the game for about 2.5 hours, right from the start of the game. So what did I think about it? Well, let's talk about it. So first off, some of you might be wondering what this game even is. What is Metaphor ReFantazio? Well, it's the latest turn-based RPG developed by Atlas and published by Sega. It's Atlas's attempt at a more high fantasy setting, featuring all the tried and true RPG elements you've come to expect over the last several decades, both from Atlas themselves and from other fantasy RPG staples. Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, wait, is this just like high fantasy Persona? And that's not the worst way to put it, but it doesn't do the game justice either. Atlas has definitely included a lot of the things you expect from them over the years. You can form bonds with characters you meet along the way, and advancing those bonds will make you stronger in combat. There's a mix of Atlas's signature stylish graphics mixed in with beautifully animated 2D cutscenes. Voice acting is, of course, on par with all their other works as well, so you've got a lot of quality expectation here. But I wouldn't just reduce it down to high fantasy Persona, because Atlas is trying to do things quite a bit differently. Being a completely different setting from the other franchises, they made sure the gameplay systems were adjusted to better support that setting. The music is also quite different, but even the few songs I got to enjoy in my time were absolute earworms already. Can't wait to hear what other songs they've got in store. Back to the gameplay, however, this is where one of my signature favorite things from Metaphor comes into play: archetypes. Archetypes are the equivalent of classes or jobs for your characters, granting you access to a specific set of skills relative to the archetype that you have equipped. In the gameplay demo I played, I gained access to the Seeker, Warrior, and Mage archetypes. Seeker was the first one, and it was more of an all-rounder. Warrior was focused on melee attacks, and Mage was, as you'd expect, slinging around different elemental magics at enemies. Now, these archetypes unlock as you acquire bonds with different characters, and at the cost of a resource you earn after battles called Mag, any character can learn and equip any archetype. So I swapped my party to Double Warrior Mage as I wanted a really strong offense because I had pretty limited time. So I was like, I'll worry about healing later. Let me just go with whatever I think will do the most damage. And of course, hitting enemy weaknesses is essential to the flow in combat, since hitting weaknesses grants you bonus actions for your turn. And that is another thing worth explaining. Turns are tracked at the top of the screen via these crystal-looking things. Each action consumes a crystal, and hitting an enemy's weakness reduces the amount of crystals consumed by the action. Also, missing an attack actually costs you an extra crystal, so yeah, you really don't want to miss, and you'll really like it when enemies miss. It's actually a bit more nuanced than the way I'm explaining it. Fortunately, the game does actually give you a pretty good tutorial, and the tutorials themselves were pretty concise. I didn't have to stop and read and try to figure it out or understand it. No, it's a few lines of text, maybe 2 or 3 prompt pop-ups that you can quickly advance through, and as long as you give those a few seconds of a read, there really shouldn't be any confusion, and I appreciate that. You can also jump between the front and back row in battle. Now, like usual row-based RPGs, the front row takes more melee damage and deals more melee damage, and the back row does the reverse. You take less and deal less. However, boss fights can also specifically target rows with their attacks, so pay attention to their patterns and move your characters accordingly. I'd assume we'll also be able to use this strategically to, maybe absorb elements or interact with specific boss mechanics, but that's speculation at this point. I really like seeing the row interaction, as that's something I've actually wanted to see a lot in RPGs, and I used to do game design in college, that's what I was educated in, and I always wanted to make a game that was more interactive between the front and back row instead of it being just kind of like a stat-based thing. There are other RPGs that do it, but I'm really glad to see that here because it just adds a level of interaction. Fortunately, you can also change rows and take action in the same turn, so it's really more of an attention check, at least for the time that I encountered it in the demo. Now, that's what happens when you're in combat, but the exploration factors into this as well. As you run around the areas, you can actually attack the enemies before entering battle with them. Doing so successfully will break them, though you may not break them in a single hit. It's going to depend on if you catch them from behind or if you're trying to attack them from the front and just maybe outpace them. It really depends on the enemy that you're actually dealing with. But if you do successfully break them, you'll cause a stun and give you an open advantage when you go into the actual turn-based battle. You can also just enter battle manually with the squad mode if you don't trust your ability to hit them before they hit you, removing the risk of them getting advantage over you at the start. Also, when fighting enemies that are too weak for your team, attacking them on the open maps actually can outright defeat them, and then you'll collect the rewards from their defeat all the same. This is especially handy while cleaning up side paths on the map, so you don't have to constantly go in and out of battle, even though going in and out of battle is really quick and seamless. Honestly, the fact that they're turn-based battles was hardly registering to me at some point because I was just constantly in and out and in and out as I was exploring the map, and it was really, really well-paced and satisfying. As for the actual maps I had the access to explore, the very first map was wide open, but it was really more of like a stealth section, and the other maps where I was getting a bit more engaged with the gameplay systems were really just mostly linear, with a few secrets tucked away and very obvious side paths as you'll see on your map, which actually kept the pacing in the early game, again, really quick, and that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Actually, whatever, I'll talk about it now. The pacing overall is something I really have to applaud with this game. I'm not going to lie. Atlas calls you, tells you, hey, you want to come play a few hours of our game? And I'm pretty conditioned to expect that I'm going to see a few cutscenes, and that's kind of the end of it. I don't know about you guys, but that was kind of what came to mind when I was invited to this thing. But again, the pacing is just spot on. In the time I played, I was given valuable exposition without bloated word vomit, a number of beautifully animated cutscenes, and then I was thrown into combat, again, at a pretty reasonable pace. I got through 2 dungeons and a field area in the time that I played, while still feeling like I was getting a meaty chunk of story. For 2.5 hours, that inspires a lot of confidence, and if they can keep that up for the rest of it, this game's gonna fly by, and it's probably still gonna eat so much of our time. And the game, of course, has other RPG systems in place. You have equipment, you gain character and archetype EXP after fights, so you have your character level and your archetype level for that individual character, and those are going to scale separately. The main character even gets the ability to assign points when they gain a level, in case you're a fan of a specific type of archetype or type of class in your RPGs. You'll find equipment in various places as you explore. You can buy them or find them in treasure chests from my experience, and I'm sure as I progress further, I'll encounter more and more, but the early game impressions of the RPG elements are super positive. Honestly, it's kind of my dream Atlas title. Don't get me wrong, I love the other games that Atlas has put out, but I definitely lean more into things like what the archetype system is and the fantasy setting. And the fact that they're applying the things they already are really good at with their other titles just screams instant hit to me. And again, with the archetypes, I gotta go back to the pacing again. Listen, Atlas, I love fusing in your other games, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't spend way too much time doing it. And that can really kill the pacing if you're trying to get involved. You know, I'm going out and catching this, trying to make this fusion. I don't want to move on till I'm done. Maybe that's a problem with me, but this approach is a classic one that has worked for decades, and it works really well here. It's stylish, it's cool, and it's quick. And it's easy to understand, but it still has the depth of the RPGs that you grew up with and expect. I love it all. And I mean, what else is there to really say? I mean, you know Atlas is going to be good with the character designs, obvious from the trailers and from my gameplay. The music, always top-notch. Story, love it. Environments, nailed. Like, you know their enemy designs are going to be equal parts entertaining and terrifying. And if you haven't played an Atlas game before, then this is me telling you that they're largely really good. And that if you're specifically into this type of setting and the gameplay pivot, then this is literally the point to hop into Atlas's RPG franchises. I hope it does well, because I'd love nothing more than to have yet another Atlas RPG franchise that I can look forward to going crazy about when game announcement seasons come around. I wish I had anything negative to bring to the table, but I didn't have a single bad experience. And again, it's only a few hours. I'm sure if I play it more, I could find something that I could criticize, but that first impression is a big one, and I'm kind of pumped, so I hope you are too. But that's going to be a wrap for my thoughts on Metaphor ReFantazio. So let me know what you think of what you've seen in this video, and if you've seen anything else from other videos that have you excited in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and who knows, maybe I'll produce some stuff on Metaphor. I'm not really sure. I don't really do stuff like this too much on my channel anymore, but this has me kind of excited, you know? So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.